Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, distinguished guests, and folks of all stripes, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans. From a diehard Houston sports fan, I'm Paul Salazar Jr., of course, Space Cadet himself, your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster. I am a writer, digital content creator, self-appointed cookie philosopher, and creative multi-hyphenate. Of course, I'm a Houston native and I have the receipts to prove it. I actually run the Kolache factory, like a bread and stuffing-minded Willy Wonka. It's a magical place. You should come by and see it sometimes. I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer in L.A., and now I'm podcasting. That's what happens when you hit 10 years out here. You wake up one day calling the movie industry just the industry. And they give you a podcast. Welcome to said podcast. This is what my brother Jesse calls the Paul Broad Pod Ball Blog. Hey, brother. Check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on how you are hearing me pronounce that there. You know, I started Space Cadet Sports as a passion project because most media is infuriating as a diehard long-term fan of the Houston Astros. Here, we are not doom and gloom Astros fans, nor are we, worse, the national media haters. We love the team and root them on, but we also try to discuss the ins and outs of our team without too much homerism. Keyword, try. You know, we try to be reasonable and not too hot-takey or reactionary. Y'all know this. We're recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles. I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, the Roz to my Fraser. Carla the dog is here with me. She may get on mic from time to time. Long-term listeners of the podcast know this. On this episode, we are beginning to break down rosters here with the Houston Astros. We're beginning to have our spring training preview here, breaking down the roster with Space Cadet. Today, it's the Outfielders. We're starting with the Outfielders of your Houston Astros. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here to talk some Houston Astros with me. You can definitely check out the Substack. You can leave a comment there. I have a SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports. You could leave a message there. You can hit me up on social media, which is a minefield nowadays, but I try to have an account almost, in most of the bigger places. I'm active on all on some of the more popular ones nowadays. It's kind of crazy right now, but you can find me on social media at Paul Salazar Jr. But for sure the Substack is, and SpeakPipe is good resources to comment here on the podcast. Welcome. If you're new, we're very happy for you. If you're back, welcome back, old friend. We're glad you're here to talk some Astros with us. I know you're excited about spring training returning very soon. I know I am. Today, also, I want to mention to all of the new listeners. The old listeners know this, but, we want to give a huge g'day mates to our Australian listeners out there. They get a special shout out. Very proud of the fact that in my first year of podcasting, we were able to be just outside of the top 100 baseball podcasts in Australia. So we're trying to bump those numbers up this year. If you know any Australian people whatsoever, just let them know this podcast is here for them, particularly if they like Houston sports and they're Australian. It really helped me if they're listening from the continent of Australia, but that's okay. If not, we take all listeners we can here. But a huge g'day, mate, to all those Australians listening. So we got the Outfielder preview today. Try to get back on topic. Those of you who listen to the podcast regularly, you'll know I've been a little crazier lately. Southern California is a crazy place to live right now. I think I've gotten a little more delirious than I normally am. But hey, maybe that's for the best. Maybe that's the energy we need. So we have the outfield preview, trying to focus up here. We definitely have to make sure that I write outfield nowadays. Just using the abbreviation OF, that could get a different type of reaction to have an OF preview. No. We're having an outfield preview here on the podcast. So we're going to look at the Houston Astros here. Obviously, there has been a huge subtraction for your Houston Astros. So big of a subtraction that I have to get my coffee mug, have to take a sip of coffee. Trigger warning to anybody that doesn't like ASMR. I'm out here drinking coffee in the middle of my podcast, but that's mostly because we no longer have Kyle Tucker on this team. He now plays for the Chicago Cubs. Breaking news for anybody who has not been paying attention, but it still hurts. I'm still processing it. I'm still dealing with it. Truly, it hurts to have a player of Kyle Tucker's caliber leave. Not only was he a great player, but he was a likable Astro. All of right field was littered with golden crowns for King Tuck. So it hurts when not only a successful but beloved player leaves the team. So there is a huge gaping hole in right field right now. I think that's fair to say. So what do we do with that? How do we address that? Obviously, as fans, with angry vitriol on the internet, but as a team, what can the Astros do to address that? What have the Astros done to address that? We're looking at General Manager Dana Brown. Very, very closely this season. I think he's done a pretty solid job. A lot of the things that have really bit the Astros in the butt have been Jim Crane decisions. The owner kind of played GM for a little bit there with the Rafael Montero contract, with the Jose Abreu contract, and we're learning that isn't good as a fan base. I don't know if Jim Crane is aware of that lesson yet. I think a lot of owners find success, and they try to make sure that they get their fingerprints on some of the decision making. So I feel like a lot of the more questionable decision making has been done from the ownership of the Houston Astros, I would say, because Dana Brown's out here doing a lot of interviews on the Major League Network. He's being very clear with his goals, and if he's out there saying his goals are one thing and then a couple weeks later say that the goals are another thing, to me that sounds like the boss told you that you now have new goals. I don't think he's flip-flopping because he thinks he's completely reversing course because he doesn't he needs to change his plan. I think Dana Brown had a very clear vision of what he was trying to do with the Astros. So let's see what he's been doing this offseason. How do we deal with Kyle Tucker leaving? Kyle Tucker being traded away. Essentially, hear me just saying that is a Jim Crane decision. That is Jim Crane trying to get value from Kyle Tucker because they know that they can't re-sign him. It's a tough one, but I truly, we'll see. I think it's Dana Brown's job to say that every move is his decision. That's part of your job as a general manager. You just kind of say that this is all part of the plan all along. But I really, think that that's an ownership directive. So now that we have completely talked about the bummer, let's try to look ahead. Let's try to talk about how the Astros are going to do this upcoming season. I was looking at this stat on Reddit. Obviously, I also saw it on Instagram as well. These social media places, you have to be careful of the information you get from them. But there was a source. I went to the blog. It was basically saying that this, by some person's projection, that the Astros, looking at the projected weighted runs created plus, the Astros are looking to have the second strongest lineup in all of baseball behind the Dodgers, I believe. If that part I'm not remembering correctly in this moment, but so even with Kyle Tucker leaving, even with most like 99.9% sure Alex Bregman is leaving. We don't know where he's going, but we're pretty sure it isn't Houston. Even with those guys down, or not down, but not on the team anymore. Why are some projections showing that the Astros could still be a pretty solid lineup? Let's look at their outfield, which I think is going to be one of the tougher positional breakdowns this season. So of course we're starting with that. We're already going to pull out our beloved Space Cadet Sports official Astros panic meter. We have this here. I feel like a lot of people are already panicking. Right now, we are not panicking whatsoever. We're setting this at it's January. We need to not stress on things and start panicking in January. This team has had a lot of success. This team is going to have a good season. But let's look at the outfield. Let's see what we're looking at here. Obviously, number one with the bullet, we have left fielder and designated hitter Yordan Alvarez. Yordan is Yordan. Yordan was asked to play a lot of left field last season. He had some injury issues with his knees towards the end of the season. I think the increased Yordan in the outfield and increased aggressive base running, kind of caught up to Yordan a little bit there at the end of the season. Take another healthy swig of coffee there. Didn't even give you a trigger warning. I'm having a tough one, folks. I need that coffee. But I think Yordan playing in left field is good, and he can do it. I think perhaps there just needs to be a little, maybe they need to look at his conditioning. They need to make sure that they have him on a good program if he is going to be running around a whole lot more this season. I think he's in. And I don't mean this disparagingly. I mean this as truly in terms of his frame. He's a big guy. That's a lot of a guy to move around. So if he's having knee issues, we want to have Yordan Alvarez on this team long term. So going into this season, I truly think that the Astros are looking to limit Yordan Alvarez in the outfield, in left field. I think a lot of fans are clamoring for that. I'm not going to go so far as to say Yordan can only DH. I want to see Yordan out in left field. I want him to. He enjoys playing left field. I think you let him play. You let him play left field. You let him play at home as a little bit more. You let him play when Fromber is pitching because it's going to be a lot of ground balls. He's not going to be very active. You find places that Yordan can play left field that aren't going to that are going to be limited activity. You're kind of smart about it in that way. So that's kind of what that's what I'm projecting for Yordan this upcoming season. Some people would say that Yordan shouldn't even be included in the outfielders because he might not even get that much playing time in the outfield. I think they're going to give him a healthy dose. It might not be as much as last season, which, honestly, I should have got that stat down. I don't have it in front of me. I don't want to make it up. But, he played a healthy amount of games in left field last season. I think this season that number is going to deteriorate a bit, but it won't be zero. It won't be very limited is my projection. So to me, you can slot Yordan in at left field, once or twice every week. I would say probably they're aiming for two games a week in left field, playing him in situational games that are good for him. And Yordan is an amazing hitter. Obviously, projecting Yordan here is insane. I guess truly when we're projecting him, what we're doing is just be like, is he going to have an MVP season? Is this going to be the MVP season? How many home runs is he going to hit this season? Do you think he's going to get how many is it going to be over 30? Is he going to be healthy long term this season? And I think I think that, Jordan will have a little slight injury or two a year. On average, I don't think that's going to change. I think, we have to keep this guy healthy. When he has an injury concern, the Astros rest him, as they should, because he is an MVP caliber player. You don't just run him out there and risk injury. So, I do think he won't be. I'm not saying he's not Cal Ripken. He's not going to be out there playing every game this season, but I don't think he's going to. Injury concerns are going to be a thing for him. I think they're going to have him ready to go, a little bit better in conditioning, and I think Jordan's going to have a great year. I'm hoping he'll have an MVP caliber style year, and honestly, because I think the Astros need it. They're going to need him to kind of pick up some of the offensive load here. So I think last season Jordan was very patient. I loved his patience. He has an incredible patience up there at the plate, and I think this season he's going to be perhaps a little bit more aggressive. So if I am making my projection like I'm supposed to be doing out here, I'm going to say Jordan's going to have a 40-plus home run season. I'll say it now. Why not? That's what I'm doing here, folks. You bookmark it, save it, put it in an envelope, and mail it to the Library of Congress. I'm saying Jordan's having a 40-plus home run season, a 100-plus RBI season, an MVP caliber season, because he's going to feel the pressure to do it. And I think a little bit more pushing might have some more strikeouts for him, but I think it will be having a lot more home runs if he's swinging. He doesn't give us a lot of swords, that Jordan. So I think he might feel a little more aggression this season. But I hope the whole team is not being more aggressive. I'm saying just specifically for Jordan, maybe a little bit more aggression this year because he feels the pressure to carry the team. Let's go ahead and move on to who we're projecting to be our center fielder. That is going to be Jake the Rake Myers. Jake from Rake Farm, of course. Jake Myers defensively is one of the better center fielders there is. For the last couple seasons, every start to the season, Astros fans are reminded that Jake Myers is a great center fielder. Defensively, he's who we want out there. He has great jump. His StatCast metrics are through the charts. He has home run power. He is a speedy guy on the bases and in his range in center field. So Jake Myers is slotting in, obviously, to start center yet again. I'm sorry, folks. I just need the coffee. We're powering through here today. But, yeah, we're looking at Jake Myers here. I think he was really struggling last season as strikes started to pile up. As he got one strike, he was swinging a lot. And as he got two strikes, he was pretty much striking out or just swinging outside of the zone. He had a lot of aggression at the plate in last season. I think going into this season, Astros hitting coaches Alex Cintron and Troy Snitker have a target on their back. The Astros offense last season was not something that a lot of fans were excited about. They didn't feel it was consistent. I agreed in a lot of those assessments. I wasn't maybe as strongly worded, but I think we're looking at some of these players that played last season that were not everyday players but played a healthy amount. We're looking for them to be more patient at the plate and get better results at the plate this upcoming season. And we're looking at those hitting coaches to see what kind of philosophy they're going to be putting their players into. So Jake Myers, I think he has a lot of potential to be a great center fielder. Maybe he's not going to be like an all-star center fielder, but maybe like a very consistent center fielder that can put together a couple of all-star campaigns. So, I think if he can put it all together this season, if he can show a little bit more patience at the plate, I think he could have a big season. But obviously, we've seen Jake Myers go through some ups and some downs. So we'll see. I'm hoping that he can put it together this season, but he is projected to be our starting center fielder, I would say. And it's I think he can hang on to that job. It is his job to lose though. So we will see how that goes. And in right field, folks, this is definitely a tough one. Normally we put Kyle Tucker just in here. Right now, going into opening day, I truly think this is going to be Chas McCormick. We still have spring training to play. We still have a lot of time to go. But if we're projecting here in late January, we're going to say right now that's Chazzy Fizz. The Chasmanian Devil, if you will. Chas McCormick obviously was a hero in the World Series against Philadelphia. Chas McCormick has had flashes of great success, going into last season, going into the beginning of last season. Chas McCormick was like a top 10 rated left fielder in baseball because he had a great offensive season the year before. Chas McCormick has found some struggles. Chas McCormick has not been as consistent, and he's looking for consistency at the plate. And once again, we're looking at the hitting philosophy from the Houston Astros coaches to see if they can help Chas McCormick lock down this job. Because Chas McCormick has great defensive instincts. He's not always going to be the highest rated defensive player in any kind of way, but he's out there and he's a gamer. So we all love Chas McCormick in Houston. He's a playoff hero, but this is some make or break years for Jake Myers and Chas McCormick here. And I think a lot of their success will be from the consistency that they have at the plate. Because they have good enough stuff defensively to stay out there and hold down the positions for the Houston Astros. Obviously, on days that Jordan isn't in left field, Chas McCormick is most likely going to be that left fielder. So that's also why Chas McCormick gets this right field and starting job, because I feel like the top depth chart choice will be Jordan, Myers, McCormick, at least going into the season. And as some of the younger outfielders start to get some play, that might shake out a little bit differently. And we can get to that. But I really think, I really do like these guys, Chas McCormick and Jake Myers, but this could be a potential year for them, a make or break year for them with the Astros. They both have the ability to play baseball at a major league level. That's undeniable. But I think, like you look at guys like Jose Siri. Jose Siri had the ability to play baseball at a major league level, of course, but he just didn't quite fit with the long-term plans of the Houston Astros at that moment. Now, obviously, I loved Jose Siri. I thought he was a spark plug. I thought he was full of energy. I would have loved if the Astros kept him. That's definitely, I understood that Jose Siri, he had a lower floor, but potentially I think a higher ceiling as a prospect compared to Jake Myers and Chas McCormick at that time when they traded him to the Devil Rays. But all I'm saying is that, sometimes players don't quite crack it on one team, but that doesn't mean anything. We love Jake Myers and Chas McCormick here. I just think this is a huge year for them in terms of their next couple seasons, if they're hanging on with the Houston Astros or if potentially they're traded at the deadline for other players. So that going forward, let's kind of look at how the other depth chart might break down a bit. Obviously, the behind all of these guys is Mauricio Dubon. Mauricio Dubon is the utility guy, the first guy off the bench for the Houston Astros. He plays everywhere all over the field. I think last season the only thing he didn't do was catch and pitch. So, Mauricio Dubon's versatility is why he is instrumental to the success of the Houston Astros. The guy just gets hits. He doesn't walk. He doesn't strike out. He pretty much just puts the ball into play. So Mauricio Dubon is also got, won a Gold Glove as a utility guy. So he has great defense. He was he was Justin Verlander's personal center fielder for that season with Dusty Baker there. Mauricio is the first guy off the bench in any outfield position, and that's just how it's going to be, I think, unless one of the younger outfielders catches fire. I think Mauricio Dubon going into the season, I don't think you want to change too much of his approach, but you do want him to be a little bit more patient, perhaps to get a couple more walks every now and then. When he goes up to the plate in the playoffs in the big moment, I'm happy he's there because I'm like, a ball's going into the play. But every now and then you're just like, why didn't he take that pitch that would have been a walk? So I think we're looking for a little bit more patience from him, but just a little bit. You can't change who the guy is. The guy just puts balls into play. But we love Mauricio, and then the next guy we're looking at here, is going to be somebody that I think kind of shakes out a little higher than maybe we expect, at least going into spring training, is Taylor Trummel. So we traded for Taylor Trummel in the off season here. He is a left-handed outfielder. He played in Seattle. That's where I know him from. I think. I think he's just one of those guys that kind of has bounced around for a bit. He has a lot of potential, but he just has really never found a home. So it would kind of be nice if he was able to find a home here with the Houston Astros, maybe playing back up in one of these corner outfield positions. We'll see. He's also a lefty, so he's a lefty at bat. He gives you some flexibility there as well. But I think he's just one of those guys that, we just have to see how much play he gets, honestly, like how much playing time he gets, and what he's able to do with that. It definitely doesn't have anything to do with talent. This has more to do with if he can kind of catch on with the Houston Astros. And then we also have a couple guys. This guy I'm kind of slotting in as your third center fielder in the depth chart behind Jake Myers and Mauricio Dubon. Obviously, Chas McCormick can play center as well, but with the subtraction of Kyle Tucker, I feel like he is more of a fit for the corner outfield positions higher in the depth chart. So for that reason, maybe you have Pedro Leon to be your third center fielder in the depth chart there. I'm putting them there because I feel like the Astros have definitely wanted something to come out of Pedro Leon. He hasn't exactly been able to find success with the major league team. He's done great in the minors, but he just hasn't been able to figure out how to put it all together with the Houston Astros. I'm hoping that this is his year. He can play defense out there in center. He has some high potential when it comes to his bat, his power in that bat. If he can figure out a way to limit those strikeouts at a major league level, if he can find that patience and find that eye and start really connecting that barrel, he can do a lot of damage. So I see him kind of factoring in as a wild card for the Houston Astros and them wanting him on the roster, potentially over the next couple of guys here, which the next guy I'm going to put in there is going to be Cooper Hummel. So Cooper Hummel, I think, might make it for a little bit more versatility in the corner outfield. That's why I'm putting him over other people here. He plays catcher. He also can designate hit and play those corner outfield positions, I believe. So I think for him, he's kind of like, to me, kind of like Trey Cabbage a bit. He's this minor league prospect that people think, it's like that guy has a lot of pop in his bat. So we're hoping that he could put it all together. I don't think he's necessarily going to be out there for his defense. Maybe, it's hard to do. To kind of do projections here because I'm not a scout. Like, I'm having to learn how to how to scout a little bit, So he's not a guy that a lot of what I read, at least, has been about his defense. So I think he's more of figuring out if he can find a home for that bat, and he's not turns into three outcome type guy, whether he either hits a home run, walks, or strikes out. So we'll check in with Cooper Hummel a little bit more after spring training when we've seen him a bit more and know a little bit more about him. He did have some play with the Astros last season and has been a minor league kind of big prospect as he's coming up, or as he's been catching on here. Then we have Kennedy Corona. So Kennedy Corona is a prospect for the Houston Astros. I have some notes here for him, but I don't have them in front of me. But from what I remember reading his scouting report, he's known for his for his defense. For sure, he has a huge range. He has great speed, and he definitely seems to be able to find a way to get some hits here. So this guy could be a nice center field option. He also has the arm to play right field. He has a big arm and good range out there playing defense in the outfield, and he's kind of figuring out how to hit at bigger levels. So Kennedy Corona might be a great option for the Astros. He might make the 40-man roster, but or I think he already is on the 40-man roster, I should say. But I think he could factor into some plans for the Houston Astros as a call-up. But maybe he catches on in spring training, has a great spring, and can kind of leapfrog Pedro Leon. But I think he's more of down the line type of guy, and that's why I place him under Pedro Leon. And then we have a couple non-roster invitees in the outfield. We have Quincy Hamilton, outfielder Quincy Hamilton. He, so these I know a little bit less about these guys. Obviously, a little deeper in the minors, non-roster, not on the roster. So we're looking at Quincy Hamilton as a center fielder primarily, left-handed, left batting. He looks to be a smaller frame, but with some home run power and decent average. Maybe we got to watch his strikeouts, but looks like a kind of wily center field option. Perhaps if there's injuries or something like that. And the other outfielder is Jacob Melton, who's a big prospect in the Houston Astros system right now. He is, been definitely rising through the ranks. He's somebody that the Astros front office is very excited about. I think he could have a big spring and surprise some people. But also maybe he's not quite there yet, and this is just to get him some experience. And I'm kind of looking through my notes. I just realized, that I didn't even go through. I had a lot of other things written here. I didn't even look at it. I'm just shooting from the hip, if you will, But truly, as we're looking at all these outfielders here, with Kyle Tucker gone, there's definitely a huge hole in the defense and the lineup. Manager Joe Espada is going to have to manage this outfield to perfection until some established depth chart order comes into focus. It sounds like it's tough, but remember, Houston Rockets coach Ime Udoka, found a way to figure out his depth for the Rockets, even with it being in flux. So, and fairly early on in the season. So this kind of thing is possible, but obviously not as easy as just, plugging Tucker into the lineups without ever really having to give it too much consideration. But remember A.J. Hinch, folks? Remember that guy? I definitely remember him from October, sadly. But A.J. Hinch, when he was a manager for the Houston Astros, he had ever-changing lineups. And I think that's what we're going to get this year, folks. Buckle in for that kind of a season. Manager Joe Espada worked for A.J. Hinch, and I think he's gleaned plenty of experience. Dusty Baker liked to keep his lineup set, but now we're going to be in for a much more fun lineup check every day. I think some keys here to look into is can Pedro Leon finally put it together? Now is kind of his time. I was saying it's kind of a do or die thing for Chas McCormick and Jake Myers here because they could turn into trade bait. But, Pedro Leon is definitely, I'm not saying the door is closed here, but, the door is closing. He's trying very much to catch on with the major league team here. Is this the time he puts it together? He has a power, he has a defense. Can he potentially slot into right field if if they're looking for that, if Jake Myers and Chas McCormick are able to hold down center like they have for years, maybe Pedro Leon holds down right. We're also going to look at Kennedy Corona, the young Astros prospect, on the 40-man roster. Is he in the place to crack his way onto the squad and leapfrog over other people in this pecking order? Is this Cooper Hummel's finally finding a home? Trey Cabbage didn't quite find a home here last year, but this might be the Cabbage Man from last season. And Jacob Melton most likely might not be part of the Astros plan in the beginning of the season, but if he's at spring training and makes some noise, maybe we see Jacob Melton sooner than later. And lastly, a guy that I didn't even mention this whole time, and that's the reason for that. He's an infielder, but Bryce Matthews is a wild card to watch. Bryce Matthews is a shortstop right now. He's an infielder, but we have a shortstop that's known for his defense, even if last season was a defensively down year for JP3. Bryce Matthews is not really looking that strong as a shortstop in the minors right now. They're saying, the scouting reports are saying he doesn't really charge the ball quite as much, which means that he has to really throw the ball hard to first, which, doesn't always yield the best results. So maybe shortstop isn't the ideal fit for Bryce Matthews. So where do you put him? It sounds like, charging the ball and throwing isn't his forte, so you probably don't want him in third. You put him at second. Is he the next second baseman to replace Jose Altuve, Bryce Matthews? Perhaps the next great second baseman of the Houston Astros? Or do you do what they do a lot of times with middle infielders that are having some issues in the minors? Do you put him in the outfield? So is Bryce Matthews perhaps an outfield potential? But that doesn't always mean anything, at the major league level, if they're giving people reps at outfield to give them a shot. Remember last year we had rumors of Zach DeZenzo playing outfield, only for nothing to really happen of any significance. But, Bryce Matthews is somebody to watch. He is most likely going to have a positional change. What will that position change to if it isn't shortstop? Because if it's an outfield position, maybe he finds a way to get some more playing time this season if he's finding a way to get some hits. We'll have to see, folks. And that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Thank you to listening for me taking so many sips of coffee. I appreciate that. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, kick it, bop it. Smash all of those buttons you have in front of me, pretty please. Or at least all the buttons that have positive connotations attached to them. We really do appreciate it. We are a small podcast. We are supported by listeners like you. So please, if you made it to this point of the podcast, smash one of those buttons for me. Give us a rating, give us a review, hit subscribe. It really does help. Also, check out that Substack I mentioned earlier, spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you can put in your email address. You get every podcast, every post, every meme emailed to you directly for free. Or if you're like me, you like your phone apps better, you could download the Substack app and search Space Cadet Sports. That orange astronaut pops up. You could just hit that you want notifications instead of emails. Doesn't hurt me any. You just get that notification pop up whenever I have a post, and you don't have to worry about the email any longer. So definitely check that out. You can support me through there, but most of it is going to be free content about your Houston sports teams. If you want to let me know how you're feeling about it, if you think I didn't quite get the depth chart right, let me know. You can tell me on SpeakPipe and leave me a message at speakpipe.com/spacecadetsports, where you could leave me a voicemail, if it isn't too crazy or insane, maybe it might make it on the podcast. Let me know how you feel. You could also reach out on social media, which is a crazy landscape right now, but you can find the podcast at Space Cadet Sports on Instagram and Threads. But you can find me, I know everybody's in a wide variety of places on social media. You can find me at Paul Salazar Jr., Paul Salazar Jr. On most places on social media. You can just look that up. Thank you, folks. Thank you for listening. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Astros.